Today, shipping is one of the largest and most important industries in the world, which needs continuous investment in its infrastructure and equipment in order to increase speed and to reduce cost. The most efficient and cheapest method, both in passenger and cargo, is still rail transportation.
Hello again and welcome to another edition of Bazaar. Today we want to present Iran's railway network and how its activities have supported the country's economy, both nationally and internationally. We will look at its domestic activity in moving people and goods about, as well as its economic impact in linking Iran with the world around it. So, don't miss this train.
The Islamic Republic of Iran Railways, referred to as the IRIR or sometimes RAI, is the national state-owned railway system of Iran. It has many affiliates, but we can break it down into two major parts. Raja Passenger Train Company is an associate of Iran Railways and manages its passenger trains. The Railway Transportation Company is another associate of the IR, which manages the freight and cargo transport. The Ministry of Roads and Urban Developments is the state agency that oversees the RAI. It might be interesting to know that Iran's railway network has been around for over 130 years. Iran has a greater population than France and more than twice as much territory, but less than half the total railway track. The government has been expanding and fleshing the railway skeleton that was laid half a century ago with new railway connections. However, the main elements of the railway network, such as track and locomotives and freight trains, are nearing the end of their lifespan and are in serious need of renovation and overhaul. Some 47 million tons of goods, accounting for just over 10% of the whole transportation in Iran, are moved by rail annually. Over 29 million passengers are transported annually by the rail transportation network, accounting for 11% of the whole transportations in Iran, which is a small amount considering the country's 82 million population. Prices of tickets for passenger trains is much less than the prices of traveling via airplane. For instance, a train ticket for Tehran to Mashhad will cost between $5 to $10. This is while an aeroplane ticket for Tehran to Mashhad might cost around $29 to $36 in Iran. However, when you compare it to prices of other countries, such as the US, a train ticket for the same distance will cost around $100, and a flight ticket will cost around $200 one way.
Passenger transportation via railway network has increased 5.3% in Iran during the first half of the current year. Over 14.9 million passengers have been transported via railway during the first 6 months of the present year. The city of Mashhad was the busiest destination in the first part of the year. The passenger wing of the Islamic Republic of Iran Railways has recently signed deals with 3 domestic companies for renovating 124 passenger wagons. This deal was to ensure better quality of services for passengers as well as safety in travel.
In Iran, road transport counts for the majority for both passenger and cargo sectors. In cargo transportation, in addition to the low speed, network limitations are the barriers to use this method. Iran Railways use a variety of rolling stock for their services. Trains are operated with diesel and electric locomotives. Diesel is a strategic industry, and by using this heavy oil as a fuel instead of gas for locomotives, Iran has joined the 12 world countries which manufacture this type of engine. Iran has the ability to produce its own railway tracks. In In the 6th Development Plan for 2025, Iran has estimated it needs 25,000 kilometers of tracks to reach its goal. For every 10 kilometers, there will be a need for 500 tons of rail tracks, reflecting domestic demand for production of railway tracks. One of the largest iron-producing companies in Iran, located in Esfahan, is capable of producing 400,000 tons of railroad tracks annually. This amount can completely supply Iran railways with tracks, and any surplus can be exported.
It is worth noting that expanding the railway infrastructure network is not just limited to how many tracks that can be produced. There are many difficulties that lay in this area, such as building bridges, tunnels, and the different grades of track play a big role in the challenges for expansion in this area. Not to mention that the carriages and locomotives themselves need to be specifically designed and engineered for various distances, along with the fueling options. Iran needs to build or renovate some 40,000 locomotives and passenger, freight, and subway carriages within the next 10 years.
Many places in Iran are still not connected to the railway. Iran's major cities are separated by hostile deserts and high mountains. Long-distance travel by road is exhausting and dangerous. RAI is looking to increase the domestic production of rail equipment and expand exports to more foreign countries as well. The government of Iran also has plans for electrification of its railway networks. However, these plans have been met with the roadblock of economic sanctions. Consequently, many foreign investors are cautious about investing in these areas, as international banking has become a big problem.
The Julfa-Tabriz line is one that is electrified, spanning 148 kilometers. Yes, it's quite a line. I've seen it personally. In 2006, Iran Railway reported that it possessed 565 engines, 1,192 passenger coaches, and 16,330 wagons. The vast majority of the engines are diesel-powered. In 2017, the Iranian government completed a loan agreement for the Tehran-Mashhad electrification project. This project will reduce travel time from 7 to 12 hours to less than 5 hours once it is completed. Rather convenient, wouldn't you say?
Iran is conveniently situated in the center of quite a few main international transit corridors. The International North-South Transport Corridor is an example of one of the major corridors, with a length of 7,200 kilometers. It is a multi-mode network of ship, rail, and road route for moving freight between India, Iran, Afghanistan, Armenia, Russia, Central Asia, and Europe. Dry runs of this route were conducted from Mumbai to Baku via Bandar Abbas. The results showed transport costs were reduced by $2,500 per 15 tons of cargo. Iran also stands to benefit from increased transit cargo. At present, over 2 million tons of foreign cargo are carried by its railways annually. With the North-South Transportation Corridor fully operational, combined with an already robust truck trade, India-Russia business transiting through Iran would generate both needed tax revenues and jobs for a struggling Iranian economy.
Altogether, the Iranian government reportedly identified $10 billion worth of railway projects ripe for foreign investment, committed $500 million of its own funds, and pledged 1% of oil revenue, which was expected to hit $41 billion 2 years ago, to its rail sector for the next 5 years.
The wider region could benefit as well. Iran can be a market for its neighbors, and its robust industrial base means the country can also be an impressive producer. An Iran that is more economically integrated into the region would have a greater stake in maintaining regional stability. Equally important, international investors in Iran seeking to promote their domestic development would surely be eager for signs that Iran is becoming a more predictable actor on the world stage. In the cargo sector, the need to transport various goods, especially petrochemical products, to ports has made the development of this sector a priority for the country. Also, major projects are defined to increase the railway passenger capacity. Both cargo and passenger transport offer one of the most interesting business opportunities in Iran for foreign companies.
As we mentioned earlier in our program today, the majority of trains in Iran use diesel engines. Iran is a big manufacturer of these engines, so let's join my friend and colleague Omid Roshandel as he explains how these engines are produced.
Diesel engine, a powerful means by which we can keep that motion going, the motion that in many ways defines our life. When most people think of diesel engines, they envision a large truck crawling up a hill, but is that it? Well, no, not really. These engines are the power behind our biggest machines like trains, like submarines and ships. On the face of it, they're similar to ordinary gasoline engines, but they can generate more power, more efficiently and more economically by working in a subtly different way. We're going to take a closer look. Stick around.
The main difference between diesel and petrol or gasoline engines is that petrol engines use spark plugs to ignite the air-fuel mixture, while diesel engines rely solely on heavily compressed air. Diesel engines provide more power, which is especially important when you need to haul or tow heavy items. They also offer great fuel efficiency. It's interesting to know that each diesel engine is made up of around 4,000 different pieces.
Well, let's begin with the main housing department, an engine block. It contains cylinders and other parts of an engine. It can contain any number of cylinders, with numbers between 1 and 12 being common, and as you can see, there are 12 cylinders or combustion chambers designed on this engine, but this number can increase up to 20 here. As the number of these combustion chambers and cylinders increase, the engine is able to produce more power. These engines operate on a 4-stroke cycle. Each stroke or a stroke refers to a full travel of pistons along the cylinders. These are separately termed, these strokes. The first one being intake, the second one compression, and then combustion, and finally the exhaust. What happens is during the intake, the air is sucked in and then it is compressed. Once the air is compressed, its temperature rises. And then the fuel is injected into this combustion chamber or the cylinder. And because of that elevated temperature of the air, now that it is compressed, it ignites. And as a result of ignition, an expansion happens. And because of that expansion, this piston is actuated and moved. Now this up and down motion is then transmitted into a crankshaft. This crankshaft is, what it does is it converts that up and down or reciprocating motion into rotational motion, and at one end it is connected to a flywheel which will store that energy and is connected to some other parts or other machines. But it is not really that easy or simple, because there should be some other pieces here in play, one of which being this connecting rod. The connecting rod is attached and connected from its smaller end to a piston, and it's with this pin it is fastened. And from the larger end, it is connected to that crankshaft, and hence it can move the crankshaft, and that torque or rotational motion is created with this apparatus. But another one important element and piece to this engine is called camshaft. That rotational motion is transmitted into this camshaft via a system of gears. What happens here is the rotational motion is turned again to a linear motion. As this rotates, this camshaft or this rod, it actuates a push rod which is connected to it. And the push rod pushes against the valves and opens them up. There are some springs. These valves are basically responsible for that intake of air or the injection of fuel. There are springs on these valves, and springs will make them or will close them automatically once each stroke is complete. After all this, we come to this stage, and this stage is called the assembly. This is called a turnover fixture, and this is the engine block, as you could probably remember. This alone, this is interesting because this alone weighs more than a ton, which is why basically we will call it a heavy combustion or internal combustion engine. Once every other piece is attached to it and inserted and installed and assembled, it weighs more than 3.5 tons, which is really heavy. What is not desirable here at this manufacturing plant is everything is done manually. I hope in the future they use more CNC machines to do everything, all the manual labor automatically, hopefully, but it is what it is for now. What I want to tell you is this. Not until precise testing is done and this engines undergo precise testing can anything get out of this manufacturing plant, which is the next step. So stay with me, I will tell you more about that.
اتاق تست هایی که ما در شرکت دسا برای موتورها پیش بینی کردیم به دو دسته مجزا تقسیم میشه. یک سریشون برای موتورهای تولیدی ماست، یعنی آزمون کارخانه‌ای انجام میگیره. طبیعتاً موتورهایی که توسط شرکت‌های دیگه ساخته شده قبل از تحویل مشتری نیاز داره که حتماً آزمون‌هایی روش انجام بگیره که صحت در حقیقت عملکرد نشون بده، یا اگر ایرادی در موقع مونتاژ رخ داده بروز بکنه قبل از اینکه کاربر این رو در فرض کنید کشنده داخل راهن نصبش بکنه. این اتاق آزمون خب هزینه‌های کمتری رو در بر میگیره و تجهیزات کمتری داخلش هست. ولی اتاق آزمونی که ما برای دیش رفت با توجه به اینکه قرار بود موتور صحه‌گذاری طراحی انجام بگیره، تقریباً تمام آنچه که در موتور اتفاق میفته ما اینجا مانیتور میکنیم. یعنی تمام سیالاتی که از موتور وارد یا خارج میشن، آب، در حقیقت هوای ورودی، سوخت و دود خروجی و حتی روغن رو ما اینجا به طور کامل در نقطه نقطه موتور مانیتور میکنیم و در تمام طول مدت آزمون اعدادش رو ثبت میکنیم.
Diesel has a higher energy density, which means more energy can be extracted from diesel as compared with the same volume of gasoline. Therefore, diesel engines in automobiles provide higher mileage, making it an obvious choice for heavy-duty transportation and equipment. These engines find widespread use in locomotives, construction equipment, automobiles, and countless industrial applications.
حالا خوشبختانه در حوزه دیزل سنگین ما تو این 10 سال تونستیم یک زنجیره تامین تقریبا پایداری رو در داخل کشور علیرغم همه مشکلاتی که در حقیقت وجود داشته تو این چند ساله ایجاد بکنیم. تو این زنجیره تامین پایدار ما از مجموع 580-90 قطعه‌ای که توی این موتور هست تونستیم نزدیک به 85% داخلی سازی انجام بدیم. مهمترین دستاوردهایی هم که تو این زمینه وجود داره، شاید شاخص و منحصر به فرد باشه، بدنه این موتور، سرسیلندش و میلبادامک هست که همه اینها با این ابعاد برای اولین بار است که در داخل کشور ساخته شده. بخشی از قطعات هم به هر حال بنا به تکنولوژی خاصی که داره اینکه ما نتونیم بسازیم نیست، ولی به خاطر بحث در مقروم صرفه بودن و سرمایه‌گذاری و دانش پایه‌ای که نیاز داره شاید در سال‌های آتی بتونیم این رو به 100% هم برسونیم که وابسته به تیراژ تولید، مشتری و سایر موارد میتونه باشه.
And this is only a small portion of the complexities that are involved in the manufacturing process of these diesel engines, which can help us maintain that motion that is necessary for life. Now we can carry heavy loads over long distances. This whole process shows we made great progress, but I believe we still have a long way ahead of us, because once I factor in the grave importance of protecting the nature, the environment, and having a cleaner environment, and also the emission of these huge engines, it gets me thinking that we should be able to make engines that run on clean and renewable energy like electricity instead of fossil fuels in order to have a cleaner environment in the future and a green world. So I believe there should be a way to make engines that are more environmentally friendly, and I'm going to go find it.
Thanks for that, Omid. Wonderful as always. Also on this edition of Bazaar, we have decided to show you some developments in the city port of Chabahar. The seaport of Chabahar is located in southeastern Iran on the Gulf of Oman at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. It is Iran's only oceanic port, and it consists of two separate ports named Shahid Kalontari and Shahid Beheshti, each with 5 berths. Also, it is the best access to the Indian Ocean and is one end of the international north-south transport corridor connecting Chabahar to Central Asia, the Caspian and the Caucasus. Being close to Afghanistan and the Central Asian countries of Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, etc., it has been given the nickname of the Golden Gate to these landlocked countries.
Due to the fact that 90% of Iran's population is concentrated in the western part of the country, the eastern part is relatively less developed. Iran is intending to change that by the development around Chabahar port, with a free trade zone and road and rail links between Chabahar and Central Asia. The Chabahar route will result in 60% reduction in shipment costs and 50% reduction in shipment time from India to Central Asia. The port is intended to provide an alternative for trade between India and Afghanistan. This port is 800 kilometers closer to Afghanistan than Pakistan's Karachi port. The port handled 8.5 million tons of cargo in 2016 and is expected to handle 85 million tons of cargo this year. The highly congested Bandar Abbas port is not a deep water port and cannot handle the 250,000-ton ocean-going cargo ships. At present, such ships dock in the United Arab Emirates, and the cargo is transferred to a smaller 100,000-ton ships for onward shipment to Iran. This makes Iran dependent on the UAE for shipments and represents a loss of revenue. Unlike Bandar Abbas, Chabahar has the ability to handle standard cargo ships. Pakistan's Chinese-funded deep seaport at Gwadar is also on the Makran coast at a distance of a mere 76 nautical miles. Gwadar also claims to provide access to Central Asia, and comparisons between the two ports are frequently made by analysts. India is taking a hand in the expansion of the Chabahar port and is also lending finance and advice to the construction of the railway. The aim is to sidestep Pakistan and compete with the new Chinese-built port a few miles along the coast at Gwadar in Pakistan. India is also lending a hand in building new railway lines to support the transfer of cargo through the country.
India and Afghanistan repeatedly pursued the exclusion of the Chabahar port from the unilaterally imposed US sanctions, but still banking issues pose a challenge. Economic sanctions do not apply to this seaport, as the goal for developing this port has been to provide India with a trade route with Afghanistan, but it has also benefited Iran during the past year. Iran and India's trade grew by 30% and reached about $17 billion within a year. Now that's mega bucks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. That's all the time we have for today, I'm afraid. Do visit us on our social media pages. You can leave us a comment or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. We would love to hear more from you. I'm Samson Sees. See you next time on Bazaar.